So by the time I got into business, it didn't mean I didn't fail. It's just part of the process to get to success. Failure is inevitable. You can always recover from failure. If I don't take this next step and try at least to see if this real estate thing works, I will have already lost. A goal is different than a purpose. If I don't do it, who else is going to do it? That's what wakes me up every day, building businesses to support the mission. I soon realized that the reason I had to be an entrepreneur is because I valued freedom. Time freedom being number one, the freedom to not have a cap on your income, the freedom of speech. It's not as hard as you guys would think. It's really a system. The upside of it is tremendous. One option has a certain outcome. The other option either leads you back to this outcome or a huge outcome. Why wouldn't you take the option that has at least upside?
Ryan, thanks for having me out, man.
Yeah, thanks for coming out, dude. Good to see you again.
Yeah, likewise. So, there's probably a lot of people that already know your story, right? You've been on a lot of podcasts, shared your story and your journey of being a pro baseball player and flipping couches. Give us an idea, like what does your business portfolio look like? Like how many companies do you own and you're running currently?
Yeah, it's changed over the years. I'm actually at the most simplest it's ever been. I think at one point I probably had like 10, 7 or 8 of which were doing 7 or 8 figures. And so it's kind of chaos managing that many things. But today as it stands, I have 3 core businesses that you could break them into multiple things, but the 3 core are, number 1, just real estate investing. And so we flip, we wholesale, we buy apartment buildings, I'm going to just put all that in the same bucket. The second business is education. With education, obviously we teach people how to do real estate. We teach people how to build businesses, teach people how to do content. So we do all those things, but let's just say, that's just one business. And then the third would be lead generation. So that's the newest one. So we do lead generation for real estate investors. That business is called Lead Kitchen. And, you just run Facebook ads all across the country. People tell us what market they want to be in and they get all the leads. They just cover the ad spend. We give them all the leads and, they get the same exact leads I get. It's literally me pitching, these sellers of like, hey, you want a cash offer for your home, all that stuff. So, those are the 3 core businesses that make money. There are other things too. Obviously social media is, its own thing. And, I get certain perks as Ryan, the influencer, whether it's speaking on stage, getting paid to do things. I have my nonprofit, which is for Christian business owners called Wealthy Kingdom. So, that's obviously a business. I don't make anything from it, but it's a focus. So yeah, that's kind of the umbrella of what's going on.
Yeah, interesting. So why simplify?
I've just realized now over the years that going deeper is harder, but more lucrative. So
what do you mean by that?
I could pretty much take any business and get to 7 figures really quick. Like I could get to 7 figures at this point in months, in a lot of cases, definitely in a year in most businesses or industries. Like I just know how to launch, build a product, market, do all those things because it's all very similar for what I've ever done. It's like, you come up with a great offer, you come up with a marketing strategy, you get a sales team around it, and you just go. But though for me, that's pretty easy to do. It's like getting to 8 figures is really difficult in businesses, and it takes way more problem solving. And so when you just look at it though, like in the grand scheme of things, would it be easier to have 10 7-figure businesses or 1 8-figure? It's easier to have 1 8-figure. And the 1 8-figure is worth significantly more money if you ever want to exit. And it's just better overall.
Yeah. Interesting. Sometimes when I'm watching guys that are as far ahead in business as you are, right? Or people that we look up to, they go, man, they make it look so easy. Like everything's gone, right, for them. And then at least for me, I know what I've experienced in the past is that it can feel discouraging because it's like, I can't do that. They can do that. They have these special talents. What do you feel like was like one of the worst, failures that you've had in business or moments where it caused you to like doubt yourself or your abilities? Or did it ever even get to that place?
Surely. I mean, I learned this a long time ago when I was in professional sports, man. Like, you go through a slump or a cold streak, you're like, am I even cut out for this? Like, am I a good baseball player at all? You know, you have a bad season. Everybody sees it. You get released. Like, you know, you have to be able to handle adversity. And so I think for me, I was fortunate in that I kind of went through all those struggles as an athlete very early in my life. Like, so many failures, so many just the things that didn't work out. And so I learned how to deal with it. So by the time I got into business, it didn't mean I didn't fail. I have literally failed more than probably everyone listening, not everyone, but let's say 99.9% of people listening to this podcast. I have failed far more than any of them. But the difference is I understand that it's just part of the process to get to success. Like, failure is inevitable if you're going to have success. Did
you always have that mindset though?
I mean, nobody wants to fail. I still go, like, I don't go into things thinking like, oh yeah, this isn't going to work. I go into it with full conviction that this is going to crush, this is going to work. And then you find out it doesn't.
Yeah.
And you learn from it. And then, you know, all of a sudden you're like, yeah, I'm never doing that again. And so, you know, I'll give you an example, right? On the real estate side, that's like been my most successful business endeavor to date. You know, I've been in the real estate industry for 15 years now, and I've been investing for 10. And guess what? I've made millions of dollars doing it. I've also lost millions of dollars doing it. Now, granted, the wins far exceed the losses, but we're talking millions of dollars of losses over a decade, you know, just flips that went bad for different reasons, right? Some were my fault. I just didn't do the numbers right. I didn't look at the rehab cost correctly. I mismanaged it, whatever happened, right? And then some are things that you could not predict. Interest rates doubled, you know, recently. And so it's like, oh, dang, all those slips I was holding, I couldn't predict. They've never doubled them that way in the history of the U.S. that quickly.
Oh, they went up fast.
Yeah. And so it's like that affects real estate almost more than any other industry because that's people's buying power to buy properties. And so instantly, within months, all these 50 properties I was holding are no longer looking like great deals, even though they're great deals when I bought them.
Yeah.
So, you know, you deal with that and you realize like, wow, what do I learn from that specific lesson? Because that's, let's say those were my biggest losses, right? It's like, all right, well, what could I have done differently? Well, did I have to be holding 50 house flips at once? Should I be carrying $20 million of debt, you know, at this point in my life? Because I have other ways to make money. Do I have to be so risky with how I make money today? And the answer is no. So today I don't hold as many flips. I got like 8 flips right now, but we're still doing more deals. I'm just doing safer deals. I'm doing wholesales and creative deals and everything else, making more money with less risk and less headache. So that massive failure pushed me down a different path.
Interesting.
To do the business in a different way.
Yeah.
So that's just one example. I could go over every failure if you want, but like there's so many.
Yeah, I'm sure. Let's talk real estate market because you are the real estate guy, right? And obviously you've been super successful in that space.
With lots of failures.
Yeah, with lots of failures.
Yep.
Affordability is the worst it's ever been.
Yeah.
People are nervous right now. There's all sorts of layoffs. There's a lot of fear in the air right now just around investing, economy. What's your overall kind of diagnosis and take on where we are in the real estate market? And are there still opportunities out there?
Yeah, I'm actually, for the first time in like 18 months, very optimistic about the market. You know, going into this year, 2024, I told our team, I go, hey, it's still going to be very difficult. It just is what it is, you know?
And how is it difficult? Like in what way?
Okay. So obviously difficulty is based upon your own perception and experiences. So from 2020 to 2022, real estate was very easy. You know, they're printing money, rates are all-time lows. People have so much cash in the bank. Properties are appreciating. It's almost impossible to lose money because even if you make a mistake, properties are going up so quickly that you're going to win.
Yeah.
And so it was easy money from 2020 to 2022. 23 happens, and I knew we were sitting on a bunch of bad deals. So I knew that was going to be an extremely difficult year financially. I just knew. I was like, yep, there's nothing we can do about it. We own these 50 properties. We're going to sell them at losses. I'm going to have to pay back all the investors, and I'm going to have to make money elsewhere in order to get through this. And I did, but I just knew how difficult it was going to be. And I knew that when you're in a market that's not good for real estate, there's low transaction volume, people aren't buying because rates are higher, so there's less buyers, and then there's less sellers too, because the sellers who had these 3% loans didn't want to sell. Yeah. They're like, yo, why would I sell my house? So overall, you have less people willing to sell, less people willing to buy. That's not a good recipe when your business just depends on volume.
Yeah.
So I just knew it was going to be hard.
Yeah.
Very hard relative to 2020 through 22. So then going into 24, I was more optimistic. I knew 23 was going to be the hardest year of, my career, really. I knew it was. And then, 24 comes around and I'm like, all right, I think that 24 is going to be a somewhat normal market. I don't think we're going to have like crazy appreciation or prices are going down, but it's just going to be like steady and slow. And that's exactly what it's been to this point. 25, I think it's going to be a great real estate market. I think rates are going to come down. That's going to cause more buyers to return. That's going to cause more sellers to want to sell now, because now they're like, oh, you know what? It's all good. I'll sell my house, even though it's got a 3% mortgage, because I can go get a new house with a 4 or 5% mortgage. Like, I think that that's going to happen. And I think that because when prices go up, more sellers are willing to sell because they have equity. So I'm very optimistic about this 25 market.
Hey, so I recently put together a list of 5 low-cost franchises that make $1 million or more. If you want to see that list, then click the link below in the description or go to franchiseempire.com/low cost. Let's get back to the episode.
Yeah, interesting. And you've come a long way. What's interesting is when you tell your story about when you decided to go all in on flipping, which is an interesting story. And I want to go through it again in a second. But I had a similar moment, at least with my wife, where when we bought our first franchise, we took, I kind of twisted her arm to take $300,000 out of our house. We did a home equity line of credit to open up this store. And it was a terrifying moment. And I know that you had a moment similar when you first got into flipping. So like, what happened then?
Yeah. So similar to you, well, actually not similar, because I didn't have equity. I didn't have any assets. So all I had was credit cards, and I had no money. And I just, I went to my wife and I was like, hey, I think I'm going to flip houses. And she's like, okay. I was like, but I'm going to have to max out our credit cards. I'm going to have to apply for some new ones, get some 0% stuff. And so she's like, all right, like, I believe in you, And so we did it, and I maxed out, or I got $50K worth of credit for both her and I, and literally just cash advanced them all, balance transferred them all. And so I had the cash, and then got some hard money loans at like 12%, 4 points, and bought my first couple of deals, and it worked out. Made $40,000 on those 2 deals. And I was like, all right, like, I could do this. This is like very repeatable.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was scary for sure. But I think we were in a different position than you guys because we had nothing to lose. Like, in my mind, it's like, all right, we're going to go take $50K of credit that we don't even have anyways. Like, the worst case that happens is it doesn't work out and maybe we go bankrupt. Like, I don't know. Like, we don't have anything anyways. Who cares?
Yeah.
Whereas with you guys, it's like, man, you built up this thing. Like, I get why that would be more scary.
Yeah. It was definitely terrifying. What's interesting is, so you talk a lot about your faith, right? And how important that is to you. And Josh and I we went down to that first store because it's in California. We've been in California. Just sat down with Bedros yesterday.
Nice.
And so I sold that store in 2021, and so we went by it. And what's crazy is I remember I was working as a financial advisor at the time, and I was commuting on the highway covering like 5 bank locations, and I would just take the same route almost every day.
Yeah.
And one day we're getting off the highway, and I see this sign that says for lease. And it's this 5-acre dirt lot where they're getting ready to build a shopping center. And I had thought about, at that point I had 9 failed businesses. Dang. I was still working, as an employee. I tried so many things.
Wow.
having thoughts like, man, I don't think I can ever do this. Like, I don't know.
I'm surprised you still stayed with it at 9.
Yeah.
Like that's, yeah, most people who are W-2 guys, like they fail once if they're lucky. Most don't even try to fail. But then, they fail once and they're like, whatever, I'm going back.
But you probably more than anyone know like that. Like, I feel like God had put a calling in my heart, whereas like I knew that my destiny was to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
So at least it felt that way, and there was kind of a lot of doubt along the way. But I'm getting off of that exit, and I hear this voice that goes, "You need to open a franchise right in that location, right there." And that was, there was a lot of other things logistically that had to happen after that.
Yep.
But that was part of why I was able to go through kind of that, adversity.
You had the conviction.
And you had a similar moment, though, that you didn't talk about when you were trying to figure out where you should go in your life. So tell us about that, because didn't that help you in doing the credit card
for sure.
debt?
Yeah. So, to go back to the story, I had failed as a baseball player. I got released by the Oakland A's, had no money, trying to figure my life out. I'd just gotten married. And so, I'm this guy trying to provide for his new wife who's in college, not making money. And people don't understand like how bad our situation actually was. We didn't even understand because we're all like happy-go-lucky. We're just young newlyweds. We think we're broke anyway. Like we're not, being broke is just normal. So, I start flipping couches, and that becomes my first ever successful business. I'd failed as a realtor. I'd failed as a baseball player. And I start flipping couches just to make ends meet. Nobody told me to do it. It was just this God moment idea of like inspiration, just looking at my apartment. I'm like, man, I bet you I could sell that couch and make good money. And sure enough, I was right. I ended up starting this couch flipping business on the side. I made $1,000 the first month, then $2,000, then $4,000, got it up to $8,000 a month net. And I was like, wow, this is more money than normal people make. And I work like 3-4 hours a day. This is easy.
Wow.
And so it was my first like true success as an entrepreneur, where I was like, I don't need a job. I can create value and money from thin air. And so I did that. And then, for a year, I'm married, we're doing that, I'm providing. So now I'm not worried. I'm not stressed anymore about the bills and all this stuff. I'm still playing baseball. I'm still pursuing my career and everything I want to do. But we're on our 1-year anniversary in New Orleans, and I'm praying. I wake up early, and I'm just like, God, what do you want me to do with my life? Like, this baseball thing, even though I'm still getting to play, I'm getting further and further away from it actually. The older you get, the less likely it's going to happen. So I'm like, I understand where I'm at in my career. It's not looking good. I already failed as a realtor. I don't like real estate. And this couch flipping thing is the first thing that's ever made me money in my life. So, I'm going to keep doing it, but man, I hope there's something else for me.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to do this the rest of my life. And I've only heard in a couple of times in my life where I could just clearly hear, see, visualize what God was telling me. And I just heard this whisper of real estate. And I was like, real estate? I just told you I failed at that. I'm not going to be a realtor. And then within minutes, I'm just watching TV and I see this TV commercial saying, hey, you want to learn how to buy houses with no money? And, you could make $30,000 today with no money. And I'm like, that's a scam. And did I end up just feeling the Holy Spirit saying, no, like, look into it. It's not. And by the way, there's no like Instagram and big YouTube channels like that's freely just saying how to do this stuff. Like I had no true like way to verify. So I Google and I find this website called Bigger Pockets that had just got started, and I'm looking at the forums and they're like, yeah, you could do these things called wholesaling. You could do, private money, hard money. You can max out credit cards. And I was like, what? I thought you had to get FHA loans. I thought you needed 2 years of tax returns, like all these things that I've been trained as a realtor. And so
you were in the industry and didn't even...
No idea. They don't teach you this stuff in real estate school. So I've been a realtor for 4 years and I never heard of any of this. And, I was like, wow, that's exactly what I've been looking for, because I always knew how to find deals. I've always been a hustler. So I was like, I'm in. I'm flipping houses. And... I told Mindy, and I was like, hey, this is what we're going to do. And that led to the whole credit card thing. But on the flight home, we were sitting in different seats because we were cheap and broke. And so I didn't want to pay for seat assignments. I thought they would sit us together, but they didn't. And so we ended up being like next to each other in different rows. And I'm sitting next to this old guy. He's in the middle seat. I'm on the aisle. And I'm reading this book that I just bought from Bigger Pockets. It's from my now friend, Brandon Turner. Talking about how to buy real estate with no and low money down. So I'm reading this book and I'm like, dude, I'm about to kill it on this because this is like, I get it. This is the key piece I've been missing this whole time. And the guy sitting next to me goes, hey, what you reading? And I was like, I'm reading this book on how to flip houses and it's this new thing I'm going to do. And I'm really excited about it. And he's like, hey, God wants me to tell you that you're going to be very successful in this and you're going to impact a lot of people through what you do. And I was like, wow, and he goes, just so you know, I don't talk to people on planes often, but, I flipped hundreds of homes. And, if you ever need any help, here's my number. The things they're talking about, like subject to and creative finance and deeds of trust and all these things, like you could flip houses that way. He starts telling me all these ways you could flip. I had no idea what he's talking about.
Yeah.
It was all so new to me. He's like, but yeah, all this stuff is true. And I was just like, wow. And that was like the final conviction I needed to go execute it. And I would later learn, for me, it was just like, okay, God's confirming what I'm doing. But, as I grew in my faith, over the last decade, I realized obviously there's spiritual gifts and the Holy Spirit was speaking through him to give me a prophetic word of what I needed to hear at that time in my life. And there ain't no way I would have ever imagined it would become what it's become, where to a T, what he said was true of like, you're going to impact a lot of people. I'm just like, at that time, I'm just trying to make money for me.
When he said that, what did you experience and feel in that moment when he said that to you?
I could just feel spiritually like a chilling spiritual feeling that now, once again, through maturity, like whenever I feel that feeling, I know like something is happening spiritually. And I wasn't as mature in my faith enough to know that like, oh man, this is a very like spiritual moment where this guy is speaking life into me and prophetically telling me what's about to happen. And I've had it happen a few other times in my life now, a decade later, but that was the first time. And he was obviously correct.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Just sitting on a guy next to the plane.
That's wild. I have a buddy, he runs a company called Rise Up Kings. They do a Christian company, does business events for men. And we were living in California. This was before I was working as a financial advisor. He was running a restoration company. He was like, hey, I don't tell many people this, but we just did like $5 million this year. And
wow.
Man, with all your skill sets, you should be making at least $1 million.
Yeah.
And I felt both offended and encouraged at the same time, because it was like, dude, don't you think I'm trying?
Yeah.
But in that moment, what's interesting, similar kind of situation with you, which is him speaking his belief into me had this transformative effect on my mind.
Yeah.
Because someone else saw that vision in me. So it's just like, what a powerful moment for someone else to be like, I see the greatness in you, and what that kind of creates, inside. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. No, I mean, it was exactly what I needed. And God, so nobody could tell me there is no God, like just from all the things I've supernaturally experienced. And within the span of 24 hours of praying the prayer, reading the book, meeting this guy on the plane, come on, man. And then like for it to play out to a T.
That's incredible.
And for it to still be playing out, however it continues to go.
So you guys work with a lot of students, right? Yeah. And people that want to be successful, and fear is just incredibly powerful, right? And it can have such a kind of grappling effect. When someone hears like that voice of do this, and they don't, because they succumb to the fear and they don't listen, what effect do you think that has?
I mean, it's massive. Not to continue to make it spiritual, but like 2 Timothy 1:7 says that, God didn't give any of us a spirit of fear. He gave us a spirit of power and a strong mind and a sound mind. And so whenever you are feeling fearful, just know it is 100% not from God. Biblically, that's what the Bible, that's what God says. And so doubt, fear, all of those things come from Satan. They come from our fallen nature. And, so if you're a Christian listening to this, it's like, all right, I need to quit just buying into that trap, number one. But, even for anyone else who's not a believer, it's like, fear doesn't serve anything, it doesn't help us at all, right? And it is very difficult to do anything. Well, okay, humans are by default creatures of habit. We want to do things that we know. We want to, going into the unknown is more scary than just staying where you are, even if you're not happy. Because you're like, man, it could be worse. I don't want to do something that might make my life currently worse.
Yeah.
And I think that people who get over fear are like, well, my life's not where I want it to be already. So I'm losing regardless. Right now, I will 100% lose if I do nothing.
Yeah.
Therefore, my only choice is to take the next step. And that's kind of where my head was at. It was like, man, if I don't take this next step and try at least to see if this real estate thing works, I will have already lost. There's a quote from Michael Jordan. He talks about how for him, he could deal with all the losses and the failure. What he could not deal with was not trying at all. And it's true. It's like, bro, I will try everything under the sun if I think it has the potential to help, to take us to the next level, whatever the case is. And if it fails, it fails.
Yeah. How many kids do you have?
3.
3.
Yeah.
How old are they?
5, 4, and 1.
Wow. Oh man,
I got the young ones. Yeah. Yeah.
We got a 5 and 2-year-old, so I've
similar.
I feel you. Yeah. So we talk to and work with a lot of people who they're already successful, right?
Right.
They're successful in the sense of they're in the most of the situations. They're employees.
They got golden handcuffs.
Yep, golden handcuffs, exactly. But they have families. Maybe they're the only they're the breadwinner in the family. Spouse doesn't work. And they have this desire in their heart to be an entrepreneur, but man, they just can't bridge that gap of how do I still provide for my family? How do I do that? What advice, whether strategically or just mentally, do you give that person?
I'll tell you this, comfort is the enemy of growth. So the golden handcuffs are very true. It's like they have a harder situation than anyone. It's kind of like what we were saying before with our situations being different, where it's like, I felt like I had nothing to lose by risking it all. You had a lot to lose. Dude, you had built up a career, a home, all these things. And you actually had built something with many of these people. And so it's harder for them to take a risk because their life's pretty good. It's for them. Most of them are like, it's not worth it for the potential risk that's associated with, especially financial analyst type people. They're looking at risk reward. Like, you know what? It ain't, the upside ain't worth the downside. Right. So I feel for them. Just to I guess bring it back even to spirituality. Jesus said it's harder for the rich person to get into the kingdom of heaven than it is for the camel to go through the eye of the needle. And what people don't understand about this verse is it's very applicable to this situation. It's that rich people who have success have a harder time finding faith because they have resources. They have success. They're being told everything's good. Everyone around them says it's all good. And if they have a problem, they have some kind of resource to try and fix it in other ways, whether that's drugs, alcohol, therapy, whatever, right? They're like, oh, well, I got resource, I'll fix other things. Whereas poor people are the easiest to get into, faith because they have nothing to lose. It's like, this is all I've got. I have to have this work. I have nothing else. And so it's far easier for them to find faith. And I think that it's easier for somebody who doesn't have anything going on to jump into entrepreneurship because they don't have anything going on. I was that guy. Than it is for somebody who has something successful and to take the risk and leave it for potentially greater success. And so what I think separates the people who actually do it versus those who don't is that they have a bigger purpose on their life than just making money and being content with whatever they make. And so like for me, you know, I made a lot of money over my career, and like technically I could just stop and retire and try and go just live on investments and make passive income, whatever, right? There's a lot of things I could do. I could not have all this overhead and stress in this company and all this stuff and be like, yo, you know what? I'm gonna just go low risk, no employees, no office. I'll just be an influencer. I could go make $1 million a year, like being an influencer, just doing things, just take one-on-one consulting things and like have no overhead, no liability, none of this other stuff I deal with on an everyday basis. The reason I don't do it is because my purpose is far bigger than that. To me, if I did that, it would be selfish. I would only be looking out for me and my needs.
But what is your purpose?
Well, it's changed over the years, right? I think when I first started 10 years ago and I was on that plane, it was me and my needs, like, yo, I got to make money for me and my needs. And that's how we all start initially. Then the next stage is, hey, if you have any kind of like, selflessness, the next stage is like, hey, I want to help those close to me. I want to retire my parents. I want to buy them a house. I want to, help my friends out, help my family out. And so, that becomes that next stage. And that's very difficult. A lot of people never get there. If you get there, I retired both of our parents back in like 2019, 2020. It's an amazing feeling. But then you're like, what's next? And so then something else fuels you to keep going. Because, if it's just money and status and a net worth number or an income number, that doesn't fulfill you. It's just like, it's an arbitrary goal. A goal is different than a purpose. And it's like, I still have numerical goals, like, hey, I want to get this revenue this month. I want to do these things this month, these amount of views, these followers, whatever it is. Like, there's nothing wrong with having numerical goals, but don't confuse that with purpose. And so I think if you get to the final stage of having a purpose that goes far beyond yourself and those around you, then that fuels you to keep going. And so for me, that really has become clear with Wealthy Kingdom and helping the business world, find Christ, because I just realized it's such a need. Nobody else is doing it, not in a big way on social media. And I've realized how much my life has changed from things like Bible studies and these events and having fellowship. And I've realized that God has given me a platform and everything else to do it. He's given me the skill set to do it. I've built communities. I know exactly what to do. I've thrown big events. I know exactly what to do. I have resources. I have friends who will speak at them. If I don't do it, who else is going to do it? And it was like, all right, well, if we're going to do that at a high level, we need lots of money. We need lots of resources. There's no other way around it. And so it's like, all right, well, if God gave me the ability to go produce and create wealth, I need to go do that to the highest ability that I have. I need to be maximizing my skill set, making the most that I can, while also keeping the other things the main things, not just being obsessed with, I got to be a billionaire. It's like, no, it's not about that. It's like, I need to just be excellent at whatever I do, because whatever I do is a reflection of Jesus. And so if my business is excellent, if the way I carry myself is excellent, and the way that I steward my wealth is excellent, it all reflects and glorifies God. And so I just think that what motivates me today has nothing to do with, I don't want to say nothing, because surely a lot of what I do is selfish too, as much as I try to not be. But a lot of what I do is like, there's so much bigger purpose. Like, I was taken care of a long time ago. I'm good. I need to now do all these things for everyone else, my employees, those who follow me, students, all these things. Like, it just goes so far beyond that. And that's what wakes me up every day, is building businesses to support the mission, then just continuing to repeat that cycle.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, it's fascinating how you're talking about how things change, because I remember being 18, 19 years old. And this was like, when the whole make money online thing really started to kind of like boom and take off. And
how old are you now?
I'm 36.
Okay. So I'm 35. So same time. Yeah.
Yeah. And what's interesting is, for me, it was just like, that was it. Like, I wanted to make a lot of money. I wanted to have nice things, material things. And it's so interesting how that shifted, especially now with, kids and a family. It just like, I mean, it's fun. Like I like driving a fast car. That's fun. Like I like staying at nice places. That's fun. But it's not really about those things. And I asked this question for a reason. What do you think aggregate your companies have done in sales over the years?
I think on just like the normal company sides, we've done over 50 million in sales, most of it digital sales. And then on the real estate side, I have bought and sold over $100 million of real estate.
Hey, so if you want to learn the right way to own a money-making franchise without putting your family at risk financially, then check out our free masterclass at franchiseempire.com/masterclass. Let's get back to the episode.
Wow.
Yeah.
So here's what's interesting to me is that for 8 years, you made what? $1,500 a month, $1,300 a month?
If I was lucky, yeah. Well, actually, and that's only 6 months out of the year, but yeah.
And that was just, I heard you talk about it in other podcasts. It was just like, you didn't care about the money. You just wanted to do what you loved.
Yes.
Like unpack that, because I think people might hear like you have the wealthy way. You talk obviously a lot about money, building wealth, but it's like for years you were willing to do something that had nothing to do with building wealth.
Yeah, like to me, that's why the wealthy way started. It's that people have a misconstrued idea of what wealth is. It's like most people just think financial wealth. And clearly money is a part of wealth. But I also think your health is a part of wealth. I think your relationships are a part of wealth. And I think your spirituality is a part of wealth. And so I want to be great at all of them, not just making money. Now, that being said, when it came to baseball and everything else, I soon realized that the reason I had to be an entrepreneur is because I valued freedom. And there's lots of things that come with freedom, right? Time freedom. So the fact that I could go leave for 6 months out of the year, play the game that I love playing, and then go home and go work and make, whatever I needed to make to go support that dream. That was literally it. It's like, all right, as long as I go make about 50,000 flipping couches this 6 months, that'll support us for the next 6 months when I make nothing. That was how I looked at it.
Yeah.
And, I did that for many years. And then, I got into flipping houses and I started to make, financial wealth for the first time. And, that taught me the second point of freedom that entrepreneurship gives, which is, time freedom being number one, even though, you just now have the choice to work 80 hours a week, right? Like that's the joke with entrepreneurs, but at least you get to decide when you want to work those 80 hours. But the second freedom is, the freedom to not have a cap on your income, right? When you're in a job, there is a cap. It just is what it is. With entrepreneurship, I mean, you could be Elon Musk one day, or you could be the guy who makes 100,000 or $1 million, whatever, right? You get to choose what you want to do with your products, how hard you work, all those things. And then the third thing, and the thing that's now become very important to me, and I know a lot of my friends don't have this, is the freedom of speech. And, I love America, and I now understand why they put this in there. But, it's, in a world now where things are so cancelable, having the freedom for me to say whatever I want about faith, about political issues, my own beliefs, I love it. I could never be at a place that doesn't allow me to do it. So, and I have friends who aren't like that. They still work for companies, or they have sponsorship deals. They have these things where, it's like, oh no, I can't talk about that. It's like, bro, then you're not free. I don't care how many millions you have. You're not free. You can't say what you want. You can't, if you can't decide your schedule and choose to be with your family, you aren't free either. I don't care how much money you make, and then money's a part of it too. If you can't do the things you want to do and live where you want to live and put your kids in, homeschool or private school or whatever's important to you, then you're also not financially free. And so to me, I just realized that freedom was what I valued most. Being able to do what I want. And so even those 8 years when I wasn't necessarily financially free, I was still free in my own way, where it was like, I'm making enough. I don't need a $2 million house. Like I'm good with what we got. I want to be able to go leave for 6 months, do my thing, not have anyone tell me otherwise, and just enjoy life. And that's what I did my whole 20s. And then now, as I'm in my 30s, I think about my 20s as my, still my baseball career, because I retired when I was like 27 or 28 Can't even remember. While, the second half of my 20s building my entrepreneurial career. And then, now my 30s have been a totally different, season of life of entrepreneurship, social media, and like now honing into being a great, businessman and a father and, these new things.
Yeah. How do you manage family life with all the businesses?
It's hard, man. I think most guys struggle with this, and the biggest advice and this is literally why I wrote The Wealthy Way. So if anyone hasn't read it, go get it on Amazon. It's because I kept being asked this question: how do you run all these businesses and still have time for family and go to church and, stay in shape and play golf? Like, how? And so I was like, well, it's not as hard as you guys would think. It's really a system. It's really the same way we run a business. Why are some guys like, man, I'm working 80 hours a week, and I'm like, I don't even work the weekends. I've never worked the weekends.
Really?
To this whole point. I never did. And people are like, no way. I'm like, I've been doing social media now for like, you guys watched it. Like, I've been saying it from the beginning. I built the business playing baseball 6 months out of the year. You don't think I could build this business not working weekends? So like, I've learned how to manage time. That's what it came down to. And I learned how to prioritize the most important thing. I actually read a quote from one of Netflix's co-founders a couple of days ago, and he was the first person to sum up what I've always believed, and I just didn't ever have a way to articulate it. So I took a screenshot of it because I was like, people need to understand this. Let me find it here. I just took the screenshot. Here it is. So Mark Randolph, one of the co-founders of Netflix, said, hard work isn't what makes companies into household names, says Netflix co-founder Mark Randolph. Successful CEOs and entrepreneurs often get ahead because they have a single skill: the ability to prioritize which issues need solutions first. Randolph said during a podcast with Diary of a CEO, I think that hard work leading to success is a myth. If I can be really smart about which problems I choose to focus on, that will make the difference. I don't have to get everything right because most things don't make a difference. Some things do. And that to me is exactly where people fail. They don't understand what is the top thing to prioritize at that moment in their life, in their business. And it's always a moving target. And so there are seasons of life where, let me just give you the last 10 years, and I can tell you exactly what I was prioritizing at that moment, and it ended up sequentially being correct. So 2015, I started flipping houses. All I focused on was flipping houses. I didn't care about social media. I didn't care about running multiple businesses. All I did was flip houses, become great at it. I felt like from 2015 to 2019, a 5-year span, flipped hundreds of homes, made millions of dollars. I was pretty freaking good at it. And at that point, 2020 came around with COVID, and I saw this opportunity with social media. At that time too, people, I had a brokerage on the side. I put no effort into it. It was not a priority, but it was just growing on the side. Started a tax firm, started, I don't even remember it. Oh, coaching. I started my education company back then too. But I didn't put effort into any of those because even though I had them, I knew they weren't a priority. I knew that house flipping was the bread and butter. And then I also knew that the social media thing could be big if it worked out. Like, I was fully convinced YouTube, TikTok, and these things, like, right now was the time to strike because of COVID, because everyone's just locked up on their phones. So I went all in. I just literally went all in, started making 2 TikToks a day, started making YouTubes every day just to learn as fast as humanly possible and to take advantage of the timing. And sure enough, it was the correct decision. And for the next couple of years, all I did was focus on social media. I did not focus on flipping houses anymore. I let it just run in the back burner. So it still made millions, but I was spending 2 hours a week in that business. And I was spending 40 hours a week making content, getting that really good. Now, what ended up happening was content obviously started to bring all this organic traffic into my other businesses. So as a byproduct, my brokerage grew. It grew to 200 agents. My tax firm grew to a 7-figure business. My education grew from 0 to 7 figures, then multiple 7 figures, then 8 figures. All because I chose to prioritize the right thing, the thing I knew would be the top of funnel for everything else. Then, you know, I did that for years. And if you watch some of my podcasts from around this time last year, I said, I am now going to focus on something else. I've done organic. I focused on that for a period of time. I'm not going to focus on it anymore. Doesn't mean we stop. It just means it's not getting all my time and attention and brain power to like grow this thing. I said, I'm now going to focus on paid ads. I'm going to become the best in the world at paid ads. That's what I said on my podcast. I'm going to bring the best people, period, on my show for the sole purpose of just learning everything I know. So I brought Russell Brunson, I brought Cardone, I brought all these guys sitting right here, down right across the hall. And I learned everything that they could teach me.
Interesting.
And I started to apply it to my business. And I started to learn how to do paid ads on my own without hiring these agencies. And I learned that, because I mean, here, this is arrogant speaking, but I was just like, dude, I see the guys who run my ads. They're nobodies. Like, if these guys can run these, they're not more talented than me. That's just the facts. I was like, I've done way too many things in my life that are way more difficult than running a paid ad. You know, like I've played pro baseball. I raised $100 million. I flipped hundreds of homes. I've done all these things. I built 1 billion views online. I can figure out paid ads. And I just felt like that was the next stage for me to grow everything. Because if organic has been the fuel this whole time, now what's the next fuel? It's paid. And so I've spent the last almost a year devoting all my time and energy, and I wouldn't say all, because I still do the other things, but my mental bandwidth of learning, focus, creativity, and everything on learning paid ads. And the results have been our events were better than ever, got more people to my events. We started a $97 a month community called Wealth University that I think can become it already will be a multi-7-figure, maybe even 8-figure, like recurring revenue business only because of paid ads. We started the lead generation company because it's running paid ads for other people, and that's already recurring 6 figures a month. And, you know, all in all, we're just in the beginning stages. And so I'm prioritizing that for the next probably 6 to 12 months until I feel like I've achieved my goal. And those offers and companies are where they need to be. And then I'm going to just reevaluate and say, hey, what's the next best use of my time? You know? And
so how hands-on are you with the ads, like currently?
Very.
Like when you say very, like what? Give me an example of like what
I look
you're
at them
doing.
every day. I mean, I look at the KPIs. I look at by the way, up to this point, I never looked at any of it. I was just like, whatever, you guys freaking do your thing. I'm focused over here.
Yeah.
You know, I'm going to grow this podcast. I'm going to grow this thing. So now I look at cost per lead, cost per acquisition. I look at, how many impressions we're getting. I look at how much traffic every website's getting. I mess around and test different landing pages. I test different opt-in forms. I test different ads. You know, I tried doing those transition ads that are funny. They suck. Like, they get great cost per lead, but the conversion sucks. And so I'm testing everything to figure out what is the best. And then now that we manage all these clients for, our lead generation company, I get all this data from all across the country, and I'm seeing how it all plays out. And so I'm just becoming immersed in the paid side with landing page optimization, ad creation, conversion rates, CRM funnels, follow-up systems, automations, all these things. Like, I built our CRM, like, it's just a whole new thing that I was never focused on that I know I can be the best at. And so now, however long it takes, but my point with that is, let's say I did everything in a different order.
Yeah.
Where would my life be? What would happen if I decided, like a lot of people who come to me for consulting, they're like, dude, I want to do coaching. And I look at their business. I'm like, you haven't even done anything. Why are you coaching people? And they're like, well, I want to make money online. I'm like, well, go spend the next 5 years becoming actually great at what you do. And, you don't deserve to coach people at this point. And they're like, well, people want it. I'm like, yeah, they do. And then after you get those couple of people who want it, nobody else will want it. That's the truth. Like, I know, because I was there at one point. And but let's say I tried to coach at the beginning, right? With less real estate experience, no social media, no organic. I tried to build a coaching business. Well, I would have had to then learn paid ads from the beginning because I had no traffic to the coaching. So now I'm like busy learning paid ads, trying to get people into coaching. My business that, I'm trying to teach people ain't as good. And, I'm spinning my wheels because it's harder to get customers because I don't know what I'm even coaching on. I don't have any organic traffic, so it's really expensive to get someone in the door. I don't have a brand built up. And so could I be successful? For sure, but it's very difficult. But if you look at the order I did it, it's like, nah, dude, I learned everything I needed to know, hundreds and hundreds of homes flipped. Clearly I'm an expert. Okay, now I'm going to just do organic and I'll play the long game. I don't need to go make all this money coaching right now. I'm just going to build the content, and then whatever happens. I'll make money that way. Then I do that for years. Then, we get into paid and we learn it. So you're looking at a 10-year horizon of doing things in proper sequence when most people have a 10-week horizon and they're trying to jump to step 3 when they haven't even done step 1.
Yeah, interesting. You're talking about how your businesses kept growing while you were focusing on different things. It's funny how sometimes when I hear guys like you talk and just breeze over the complicated stuff, but knowing that it's much more difficult than that in the sense of probably how it played out for you, but you had to have had a great team and still do have a great team to pull that off. So how do you, for people that are wanting to build a business and become entrepreneurs, what's your strategy and process on building teams?
Yeah. So there's a lot that goes into this. So number one, playing in sports, I was always a part of a team. So I understood culture, talent, getting along, different people specialize in different positions and all that. So it became clear to me that not everyone's meant to be a salesperson. Not everyone's meant to be an admin or whatever the case is. And so intuitively, I kind of had feel for that without really realizing why. I built my first team in house flipping. In 2018, I decided to start hiring people. So, actually, I'd take a step back. 2015, I was still playing baseball. I decided I want to start flipping houses. So, I have a choice. And this is really the important part that people need to know. I had a choice. And most people don't think like this, but it was keep playing baseball and making no money, or retire and pursue this house flipping thing and make money. That's how most people would see that issue. I said, well, I'm just going to do both. How could I do both? Because I'm not ready to quit. I'm also tired of being broke. So how could I do both? And it became clear that, well, you could do both. You're just going to have to hire somebody to go look at these properties. And you're going to have to trust that they're going to do the job while you're out in another city playing baseball. And so at 25 years old, 26 years old, I made that decision that, hey, I'm going to trust because I don't want to quit.
And who'd you hire?
I ended up getting my dad. And I said, hey, Dad, at the time he didn't have a job. He was just kind of doing odd and end stuff. And I was like, Dad, I'm going to buy a couple of properties while I'm gone. I need you to just meet contractors there, get bids, check the properties, make sure that, it's because I could see the pictures, make sure the rehab is what I think it's going to be. As long as that's square, we're going to buy the house. I don't need to go see it. And so literally my first year, I was already delegating things, not even looking at properties and buying them, where most people would never do that. That's super scary. But I knew, it's not that I knew, I just knew, I didn't want to quit baseball.
Yeah.
So I had to do both. So then it ends up being successful my first year. So then I go into 2016 and now I've developed.
And you still just had your dad on the team at that point?
2016 is still my dad. So I did 5 flips my first year in 2015. My second year, and I made $50K. My second year, I made $200K. Playing baseball, 6 months. My dad just walking properties while I'm gone. I walked them when I was there, but he walked them when I was gone.
And overseeing contractors.
Yeah, just overseeing contractors, all that stuff. So then, now, at this point, I'm the richest minor leaguer ever, because I made $200,000. So then I'm going into 2017, and, I'm going into a season again, and I'm like crushing it, flipping houses. I ended up flipping 50 houses that year, made $750K, and I had one person. I ended up hiring my friend from the nightclub industry, actually, out here. One of my childhood friends. I was like, hey, bro, because he had his real estate license. I was like, I want you to list these properties. At that time, I was still listing them. I still had a real estate license. I was like, I want you to list the properties and manage the projects and all this stuff.
And they didn't have real estate experience at that time.
He had a real estate license, but he definitely didn't have no experience. I had to, like most realtors, he wasn't very qualified.
Yeah.
So anyways, I ended up teaching him the ropes before I left. Not even very good, by the way. He'll tell you, he's like, bro, you took me to one house and you were like, this is it. And that was the training. And so I was good at picking talent who could figure things out. And I went to play baseball that year, 2017. And dude, we had like 15 properties going on when I left. And, I'm like, all right, man, you got this. Let's go. And then I'm out. And so I went out and played. And dude, it was the weirdest season of my life because business was booming. And I was so stressed out, playing baseball with so many deals going on. Because before it was manageable. I had a few going on. I could easily manage it. But once I had 15 going on, it was like, bro, I would show up, before I got to the field, I'm over here doing emails, looking for deals, answering crap, funding deals, making sure they close. Then I get to the field, I'm practicing. I get back after BP. I'm looking at my phone. There's all these texts and emails and I'm responding. Then I go play the game. I'm thinking about all the problems. I'm still running a big business. I'm thinking about all the problems on the field, trying to go hit this guy who's throwing 95, trying to strike me out. And then I come back after the game and then there's all these emails again and new problems that I, whatever. And then I'm on the road in a motel doing this whole spiel. So anyways, long story short, it was a weird year in that front because I was dealing with way more than I ever had to deal with. At that point, I'm 28 years old. Randomly, I don't even know how this happened, but the first month of the season, I was leading the league in home runs, which I wasn't even this big power hitter. I was just hitting bombs. But my average was super low. So I was either striking out or hitting a bomb. And then, the second month I ended up getting released because I was just sucking. I was just having a terrible year. And so I got released halfway through the year. And I was actually very relieved I got released because I was starting to feel so overwhelmed from the business. But the competitor inside of me was like, I'm not quitting. I am not going to just quit on my team and stop doing this. So I was like, I'm going to just ride out this season. And I already had it in my mind. I was like, I'm going to play the next 2 months and I'm done. I'm going to retire after this. And then they released me halfway through the year. I was like, thank God. I'm good. I can walk away peacefully with my life. And then I had a couple of teams call me and I was like, I'm good. I'm going home. And what's funny is it was such a weird car ride back. So I was in Fargo, North Dakota. And I drove from Fargo to Vegas. It's a 24-hour drive for anyone who wants to know. And I get released. I call my wife because she's already back home at that point. And I'm like, hey, they released me. I'm just going to come home. I'm done. And she's like, okay. It's just weird. I'm like, my whole life was dedicated to this. I was like, yeah, I'm at peace with everything. I'm good. I'm just going to drive home. And she's like, okay. So I'm driving home by myself. It was probably one of the biggest reflections of my life at that point. But, I'm just driving home, thinking about my career. And I'm like, wow, it's over. I've spent my whole life doing this and it's, I'm not going to make the big leagues. I gave it my all though. I have no regrets. I gave it my all, but I'm also excited for this new journey that I'm about to go on as an entrepreneur. Imagine what I could do at full force. I've been halfway in this and super successful. And so I was like, all right, what do entrepreneurs do full time? I just didn't even know. Cause in my spare time, flipping houses was the side gig. In my full time, I'm training, practicing, working out, doing all that stuff. That took way more time to prepare for the season than the actual real estate stuff. So I'm like, I'm going to have so much time. What do I even do? I was like, I think I should get an office. That's what all business owners do, I think. So like, I think I'm going to get an office. So I'm like already planning offices. I'm like, where should my office be? Like, I'm just thinking about random things. And then I call my buddy, Nick, who had been managing my stuff. And I was like, hey, you know what? We're going to open up a real estate brokerage. You're going to be the broker. He's like, all right, deal. All right. So I was like, yeah, we're going to do that because, we're going to flip so many houses, dude, that I don't want any other brokerage getting all the credit for it. We're going to have the brokerage and people are going to come because we're going to flip so many houses. And then I was like, all right, so I'm going to do that. And then I was like, what else should I do? Like, what should I read? Like, I don't even read any books or anything. So then I just was Googling podcast while I was on the road. And then this podcast from Lewis Howes came up. I had no idea who Lewis Howes was. Now we're friends. But, I get this podcast from Lewis Howes and he's interviewing like Kobe Bryant or I can't remember who it was, but it was an athlete. And then Lewis is like, yeah, I'm an entrepreneur. I used to be a pro football player and handball guy. And I was like, dude, this guy gets it. Like he used to be an athlete. Now he's an entrepreneur. Sick. I need to start like watching this guy. And then, I listened to his stuff and then it just like gave me encouragement of like, oh, this is the next stage of my life. And I think that like at that time too, Kobe was like retiring and he was now an entrepreneur doing his thing. And I was like, all right, my life's going to be pretty dope after sports. Like I'm actually excited. So that car ride kind of like got me mentally prepared for what was to come.
Yeah, that's epic. And so what I'm hearing is that in the beginning, you focused on hiring the people that you trusted, not necessarily the people that knew the most.
Yeah. Yep. Oh, I forgot. That was the whole thing that led to this question. So
good. It was a great tangent.
Yeah. So like that was the 3 years while I was playing. I had one guy and I made over $1 million, just doing that on the side. And when I got back, I got the office and I started a brokerage. And I was like, well, I guess I should hire some salespeople and I shouldn't be the one just getting all the deals. So I literally just filled the office and got like 7 guys. I just was like, freaking, here's a list of people to call. Just call them. I had no dialers, nothing, no CRM.
So you're just hiring random realtors?
I literally put it on my Facebook. I didn't have anything else. I was like, hey, show up to my office tomorrow at 8 a.m. if you want a job. That was literally what I did.
And were they already licensed or they had to get licensed?
No, none of these people were licensed. They were just cold calling for me. They didn't even have to be licensed.
Oh, got it. Okay.
So literally like 6 people showed up and that was my crew. And so we put them in the office and then, I'm like, guys, here's a list. Just dial them. And they're like, okay. So literally on their phones, their personal phones, they're just hand dialing list. It was so dumb in hindsight, but we got deals. And it just goes to show that if you just take action and do things, you will win. Like no matter how dumb or inefficient it is. So that year, that 4th year, we ended up doing 150 deals. So I went from 50 to 150 for my first full year in the game and did $2 million in profit. And I was like, yep, it's a lot easier like being full time at this. And
this was with like kind of like a just thrown together a crew, essentially.
Ragtag, most unqualified crew ever.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible. So what's your process now? Well, it is really interesting, right? Because most people think that it's like, oh, I have to have everything perfect and I have to do this and I have to do that.
No.
If you try to do it that way, then do you think you would have had the growth or the success?
No way, dude. I'd have been overanalyzing everything. I've always shot from the hip and like figured it out along the way, So yeah, I mean, like at that time I had, let's just say, like the 6 sales guys and people in the office. I had 2 people in project management looking, handling all the contractors. I had Nick, who was still listing all my flips and he was managing the brokerage at that time. And, everybody was doing their thing. And it was great. 2019, very similar. 2020 was when I first realized I needed a business coach. Because 2019, I made less money than 2018.
Oh, interesting.
And part of that was market related. The market was a little bit tougher from 2018 to 2019. But also, too, I just kind of like didn't realize all the things that I was doing wrong until like a bad market kind of exposes you. So I lost money for the first time in like deals. That was my first experience losing money. And I was like, I don't like that. I want to do less of that. And so I'm like, I probably need to hire a coach. So that was the first time I ever hired a coach. So I hired a coach in 2020. And
how'd you find the coach?
So I actually joined my first mastermind at the end of 2019. And it was a real estate mastermind strictly for people doing over like 50 deals a year. And so I go to this mastermind, and that's where I meet this guy who ends up running my TV commercials that, I would run for like the next 4 years that made a lot of money. I met him at this mastermind. And then at that mastermind too, I heard about this business coach, and I was like, all right, let me go hire this guy. And his name's Gary Harper. He's been on my show many times, and now we're great friends, and I always have him come to my events and speak and stuff. And we still work together to this day. But he just showed me everything I had no idea about from the corporate world, because that's, he would coach Fortune 500 companies and stuff. And like, I didn't have an organizational chart. I didn't know what an SOP was. I didn't know any of these things. And I had made millions just winging
insane.
it. Yeah. And I was like, oh yeah, that would make a lot more sense. Like actually knowing the positions you need, that would make more sense. Like not having to manually train them, from scratch every time you hire somebody, but like having a clear process. And, it was like mind blowing to me. And that was actually the point when I realized I could run lots of things, because I was like, well, dude, if like I have a COO who does all this stuff, I'm not even anywhere on the org chart. Like that means I could do lots of things. And so we did that, so going into COVID, I had rebuilt my house flipping operation correctly with a COO, with people in the right seats and all these things, clear KPIs that they needed to hit and follow. And so when the opportunity came to focus on social media, around like March, April, by the time May happened and they like let us back into the world, I was like, guys, I'm not going to be like with you guys anymore. I'll be here. I'll be like right next to you, but I'm not going on appointments. I'm not closing deals. You guys are ready to do this on your own. And they were. They made more money that year than all the years combined. And I was busy building my social media. So, it was learning how to run a business the right way.
And do you have people running the businesses now?
Yeah.
So you're not actively running the day-to-day of the business.
I would say the only thing I'm super active in right now is the marketing, because I'm doing the paid ads and everything.
Yeah.
But my hope is that, like I said, in 6 to 12 months, it will be where I want it to be, and I will be able to be far less hands-on.
Yeah. Awesome. Cool. So last question, someone out there is watching and they're just not getting the results that they want, in life. They're wanting more. They're kind of feeling stuck. They kind of know they're capable, but kind of doubt themselves. What do you say to that person?
I say you can always recover from failure. Like, just take a shot. Like, to me, the biggest regret in life is looking back and saying, man, I wish I would have tried that. That to me is the biggest regret. I will not regret failing. Now, there are many mistakes I made where I'm like, I wish I didn't start that business. I wish I didn't buy that deal. But at the end of the day, because I understood the process of why I made that decision, it's like, well, I wouldn't change the whole process because it led to this, this, and this to also happen. So overall, yes, part of it failed, but overall it was great. So, I think for me and for those people, it's like, accept that you will fail. Like, already come to terms with it, because then if you do that, you won't be like dreading it. You're like, yeah, no, it's just part of it. It's going to happen. I'm not scared of it. I already know if it does happen, what I'll do, and it's all good. And, the upside of it is tremendous. And my life and those around me's lives will be drastically different if I succeed in this. And so I think it, for me anyways, like that person who is very fear-based, a lot of times is very analysis paralysis more than anything. They think about every little thing that could go wrong. And, what I found is actually the emotional people are more just gut decision makers. And they're like, oh, dude, this feels good. Let's do it. And it's usually like the more analytical people that have paralysis analysis.
And how does that analytical person make that shift? Have you seen someone kind of make that transition?
I think it's like in sales, like you got to understand the different people you are trying to motivate, inspire, sell, negotiate with. So like for an analytical person, you got to speak analytics. And so I would try to use logic to help them understand that this is a good decision to make, which is kind of what I was saying instinctively before, where it's like, hey, let's play out some scenarios for you. Okay. Scenario 1, you stay here just doing what you're doing. Where does this lead in the next 20 years? And then, you play that out. It's like, Would you be happy with that? No? Okay. So that's not an option for us then. Let's go scenario 2. You go down this path. Let's just say it fails. Doesn't work out. How much do you lose? Okay, you lose X number of, what would you do if you lost that? Okay, you just probably go back over here, and you think that it would probably still end up being that same thing. And they're like, yeah, I would just recover and we're back to the same situation. I'm like, okay, let's take scenario 3. You do this thing and it actually works. Where does your life go in 20 years? And then, you could see like, oh man, this is crazy. Like the potential is huge. I go, so let me get this right. I mean, we're looking at 3 different options. Well, really 2 options that, one option has a certain outcome. The other option either leads you back to this outcome or a huge outcome. Why wouldn't you take the option that has at least upside? Because either way, you end up back here if you fail or do nothing.
Yeah, interesting.
That's a logical argument.
Yeah, awesome. Ryan, it's been great. Where for people that don't know you, I feel like everyone already does, but for people that don't know you, where should they check you out or?
They can go follow me on social media at Ryan Pineda. If they want to work with me, they can go to ryanpineda.com, and we got a bunch of stuff.
Cool, man. Awesome.
Cool.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Hey, before we go, thank you so much for listening to this episode. Please subscribe here on YouTube if you haven't already. And the biggest thank you that you could ever give me is to share this episode with someone who you think will benefit. That means that we can share this message with more people and hopefully positively inspire them like we have you. So thank you. And until next time, go build your empire.